Hello students, myself Srikanto Sen from George Group of Colleges. Now we are into the Unit 4 or Module 4. The subject is Cyber Security, BCAN 501. So we'll start with protocols and proxy. At first we'll start with proxy. So what is a proxy? Suppose this is the attacker. The attacker has an IP address and this is the server. The attacker wants to attack this server. Attacker has an IP address as well as the server has an IP address. Now when the attacker tries to connect the server directly, the server get a presence of that attacker. Why? Because server maintains a log and that log file records all connection connected to the server, so that the server knows that a connection is generated from the IP address 11.11.11.11, and if any kind of hacking activity or kind of damaging activity performed by the attacker over that server, it can be easily identified. Correct? So what computer or what IP address makes this kind of malpractices with that server or make damages in the server? Because server maintains a log file. Now think of this concept where an attacker is not directly connected to the server. See, I have made it cross. So what the attacker did, now the attacker tries to connect to the proxy. Now when the attacker tries to connect to the proxy, now from proxy that request is forwarded to the server. Now the attacker IP address is 11.11.11.11. When it connected to the proxy, proxy gives a new IP address. That IP address is 11.11.11.22 and it tries to connect to the server. Now when the request is generated from that proxy, the server sends a request to the proxy and from that proxy it is delivered to the attacker. Now if the attacker makes some damage to the server, the attacker's IP address is not present in the server. What is present? The IP address 11.11.11.22 is present in the server. Now the forensic team will come and try to identify that server on that computer that makes that damage. What it will find? It will find simply a proxy server. That means what happened? The attacker hides its identity. So this is the concept of proxy. That means instead of directly connecting to the server, it uses a proxy server and then tries to connect to the server. Next, how the proxy is implemented. Whatever I just now said to you in my lecture is clearly written here. That the first the attacker makes a connection with the proxy server and then requests connection to the target computer via the existing connection up to the proxy. So this is written here. Read it carefully. Next is, why should you use a proxy server? Now this is the question. Now lots of points are there. The first one is privacy benefits. It is written here, the server does not know which IP address actually made the original request. So there are lots of things present in the dark web, correct? So if a user wants to visit the dark web or the deep web, the user cannot give its own IP address. Somehow the user need to hide its identity behind any server because of the privacy. So that's why the proxy server is an important tool. It hides your identity and maintains your privacy. Next one is to control internet uses of employees and children. Now in many organizations, the organizations want to monitor their employee, what they are opening and what they are not opening. So they use a firewall to identify some packets that should be passed through that firewall. Like in your college, say Google, you can open google.com from your college lab, but you cannot open facebook.com. Why? Because your college implemented a firewall where when you type something www.facebook.com, that firewall drops that packet and you cannot reach that Facebook website. But if you type google.com, it is visible. Correct? So to bypass that firewall, many employees use proxy. Next one is get access to blocked resources. So this is another one. So several government around the world closely monitors and restrict access to the internet. Like for example, if you go to China, you cannot open Google, or you cannot open YouTube. But Chinese people suppose want to open YouTube or Google. So what they will do? Say they bypass that uh, filtering process, and that YouTube is blocked. Say Google is blocked. I'm not saying this is blocked, but suppose this is blocked, then they can easily access it. Next one is, why should you use a proxy server? Continues. The bandwidth saving and improves speed. Proxy server can cache, save a copy of the website, totally popular website. So when you ask for rediff.com, the proxy server will first check its cache for most recent copy of the site. If it is present there, then it will send you a cached copy of the rediff.com. That means some time is saved. Correct. And last one is, it improves your security. Many proxy server encrypt the web request. Encrypt means, suppose when you send a message through your WhatsApp chat, it is encrypted end to end. That means suppose A sends a message to B, nobody in the WhatsApp world, or any of the employee in the WhatsApp do not have any idea what is that message, because it is end to end encrypted. It means whatever you type, it goes to WhatsApp server, and from that WhatsApp server it is delivered to a particular person, say person B. But if the WhatsApp employee open that server and try to read that message, cannot understand anything, because the message changed its original format. It is not in the plain text format. Now what is plain text and what is the encrypted text? I am giving a simple example of this. Okay, say I am writing A, B, okay, say make it BCA. Say BCA is the plain text. Plain text. Now what is encrypted? Encrypted means, suppose I am adding one character to it. So B will be C, C will be D, and A will be B. Now when I say BCA, it has a clear meaning. It has a clear meaning. BCA means a course that a student is studying. But when I am saying it is CDB, now there is no course like CDB. Now it has no meaning to you. That means it is encrypted text. Now what is happening here? What I am doing? I am just adding 1 to B to get C. I am adding 1 to get C becomes D, and adding 1 again to become B. So what I get? I get this CDB text, and it is encrypted, and it is meaningless to many people. Correct? Okay. Next one is types of proxy server. So one is transparent proxy, next one is distorting proxy, next one is anonymous proxy, and the last one is high anonymity proxy. Now you need to read this, and whatever is written here you need to memorize, and if this question come in the examination, types of proxy server, you have to write this in exactly same way. So there is nothing to be discussed here. Okay, in simple way, the proxy servers are of mainly two types. One is HTTP proxy and another one is SOX proxy. Now, what is the HTTP proxy? These are the older type of proxy servers, and that can only support web traffic. This is about HTTP proxy, and there is another one, that is the SOX proxy. Their proxy servers can also handle traffic from FTP server and from BitTorrent clients. They are slower than FTP because slower than HTTP because of their increased complexity. So HTTP proxy is a simple version, whereas the SOX proxy is a more complicated version. HTTP can only support web traffic, whereas SOX proxy support HTTP traffic, torrent traffic, FTP server traffic. That means lots of things it is supported by the SOX proxy. Okay. Next come to proxy chaining. Now proxy chaining, I am giving a simple real life example of proxy chaining. Suppose you want to travel to London from Calcutta. So there is no direct flight from Calcutta to London. So what you will do? From Calcutta I will go to Mumbai. From Mumbai we will go to Dubai, and from Dubai we will take the direct flight of London. So what is happening? Your intention is you want to go to London, but as there is no direct connection between Calcutta and London, you will take a via route. That means from Kolkata to Mumbai, so Mumbai to Dubai, and from Dubai to London. So the same thing happens with the proxy chaining. In proxy chaining, the attacker don't use a single proxy. Now what is single proxy? So this is a single proxy. Attacker using a single proxy to connect to the server. Whereas in proxy chaining, the attacker use multiple proxy and then tries to connect to the server. Why the attacker uses proxy chaining? Suppose it hides the identity of the attacker in a more efficient way, correct? And in proxy chaining, as lots of proxies are used in between the attacker and the server, the identity of the attacker is extremely, I should say, in efficient way, identity is hidden, correct? Okay. Like a best proxy server is known as Tor, the onion router, correct? If you want to connect to the dark web or the deep web, you need the help of this proxy chaining uh, Tor browser. Next one is forward proxy and the reverse proxy. Now look at these arrows. You find that there is an arrow from proxy to server. So client sent a request, you can see the arrow. Client sent a request to the proxy server, and from the proxy server the request is broadcasted to the actual server. In the reverse proxy, what happened? It is controlled by the server. So client controls the forward proxy and server controls the reverse proxy. You can see the arrow heads to identify from which side the control has been taken. Now I am just reading out what is a forward proxy. So whenever we say proxy, it means by default forward proxy. The forward proxy provides a proxy services to the client or a group of clients. However, these clients belong to a common internal network. In other words, it retrieves data from another website on behalf of the original requestee. Now question is, who are the original requestee? These people are original requestee. Think of your three friends, A, B and C are sitting in the computing lab and want to open Facebook, correct? So what they will do, they will send a request to a proxy server that please kindly open the Facebook into our computer, as our college has installed a firewall and is blocking our request to open that Facebook. So what will happen? It will be forwarded to a proxy server, and that proxy server will then forward this message to the entire world or the www internet that I need to open this www.facebook.com. So a request is generated from the client side, and this forward proxy server maintains this and forward this in the outer world. Now when it comes to reverse proxy, as the name suggests, see, when we say forward proxy, it is originated from the client. While a forward proxy works on behalf of the clients, a reverse proxy works on behalf of the backend servers. Now, why this reverse proxy is required? Because it is required to balance the traffic and the load to achieve high level of availability, correct? It receives the external request from front-end clients on behalf of the servers behind the proxies as depicted in the diagram below. I'll be showing you a picture and you'll get a clear idea of this. Now see, these are the clients, but the server is actually maintaining the reverse sided proxy, correct? See, this is from the right side and if you look at this, it's from the left side. So this is the basic difference. It is originated from server, it is originated from client. So this is the basic difference. Differences in functionality. Forward proxy hides the identity of the clients, whereas reverse proxy hides the identity of the backend server or the servers and the serving and data serving the request. Correct. So this is the basic difference. You need to read this. So in summary, what is proxy? So this is client, this is internet. Between you and internet there is a direct connection, as because there is no concept of proxy. Now if you want to add a proxy in between you and internet, so what will happen? You send the IP address that is stored in the proxy server. Now proxy server generates its own identity, a new IP address, and then try to connect to the internet. Correct? So in simple connection, the IP address is not changed. The server knows who made that request in original. But when you think of the proxy server, the server has no idea or no clue that which computer or which IP address makes this request, because it is actually getting request from the proxy server, not from the direct computer. Correct? Now advantages of proxy server and disadvantages of proxy server, you need to read this. Like proxies are cheaper one. Now it hides your IP address. So these are the advantages. It's very simple to install a proxy server. Just you can attach a plugin to make a proxy server. Disadvantage is that only your IP is hidden. The rest of the connection is not encrypted. Encrypted means I just now told you BCA, the concept. So whatever you send from your IP address to the server, everybody can listen it. In fact, the proxy server can read what you are sending, correct? Because it is not encrypted. Your IP can still be visible on some websites. If you use a free proxy, it will be slow and not always working. Most of the proxies are not good proxies are not free. If you get a free proxy, try to avoid it, because free proxies are not good, correct? It will ask lots of things from you, like your email address, your contact information. But the good proxy server, and that is going to help you in a bigger way, are basically paid proxies. Next comes the concept of VPN. VPN is basically the virtual private network. Instead of discussing this slide, if I show you the picture of VPN and compare it with proxy, you'll get a better idea of this. So look at this, the proxy. Your IP address, there is a proxy forwarded to the internet. What internet server gets? It gets the proxy server's IP address, and in the form of unencrypted connection. But if you think of VPN, you will find that there is a VPN. Now VPN also generate IP address, but the change in this text, you will find that it is encrypted connection, where in proxy it is unencrypted, in VPN it is encrypted. So this is the basic concept. So VPN and proxy are almost same. In VPN it is encrypted, and in proxy it is unencrypted. The advantages of VPN and the disadvantage of VPN. The advantage of VPN is that only one advantage you can think, that is, it is encrypted. Now the text is converted into such a form that nobody can understand in between that what the sender is trying to send. Only the sender and the receiver can understand, because it is encrypted. The disadvantage is that the proxies are costly. Proxies are not costly, but the VPN is costly because of this concept of encryption. When you try to add an encryption layer over the data, that means the connection will be slow enough compared to proxy. Proxy is a bit little faster than the virtual private network. Next comes to networking ports. Now when a computer system tries to connect to another computer, the port services act as a communication endpoint. Now what is a port? You can think the doors in your home is a number of ports. Suppose in your house there are 4 entry points. That means there are 4 doors in your house through which you can enter into your house. So I should say there are 4 ports in your house. Similarly, computer has lots of ports. It is ranging from 0 to 65535. There are some well-known ports, there are some registered ports, and there are some dynamic ports or private ports. Correct. Some well-known ports basically work from 0 to 1023, like HTTP, like SMTP, like HTTP, SSH, HTTPS. So all these POP3, all this protocol uses some well-known port, and these port numbers cannot be changed. Correct. Okay. Like I'm showing a simple example, I use a plugin to identify how many ports are open or closed in George Group of Colleges website. What I find is that the HTTP port is open. That's why I can open that website into my browser. It is using a port number 8. HTTPS, it is also open. It is using a port number 443, and it is using a protocol TCP and TCP. Like DNS, it is using a UDP protocol, port number is 63, and it is also open. Now network time protocol is using UDP, port number 123 is closed. NetBIOS UDP 12137, and it is also closed. Suppose you want to attack that website with NetBIOS attack, that is also possible, but you cannot do this because the NetBIOS port is closed. How can you attack through this port? Next one is sessional initiation protocol or SIP. It is using a port 5060. It is also closed. Now 5060 is not a well-known port. If I move to this slide now, there are some well-known ports. It is 1023. Whereas if you look at this, it is more than 1023. So it is not a well-known port, a special port. The IP address of this georgecollege.org is 198.38.82.11. Okay. Here comes some port that are popularly used, marked with the red color, and port number 20 used by FTP. Port number 22 used by SSH, secure shell. Now port number 80 used by HTTP protocol. 110 used by post office protocol. Say 443 used by HTTPS, secure. Now what is secure? HTTP over secure socket layer. That means when you try to transact in a website, it's a financial transaction, all your transaction will be encrypted, and it will be using a HTTPS. Correct. So this is all about this chapter, and today we have finished module. In this last 1 month we have finished module 1, module 2, module 3 and module 4 all together. Correct. So now it is your task to read this material, make your own notes, and make and go through these slides again and again. Correct. Thank you, students.